You're watching.
Welcome to Out of the Fog. I'm your host, Lydia Loveless. Tonight we have with us NDP candidate for the upcoming provincial election on October 14th, the Honourable Jim Dinn. It's going to be a great show. Stay tuned.
At Rogers TV, we know our community thrives because of the incredible people who support it. Today we want to extend a heartfelt thank you to all our amazing volunteers. Your hard work, dedication, and passion make our productions possible, bringing local stories and events to life for everyone to enjoy. Whether you're behind the camera, in the control room, or helping at events, your contributions are invaluable.
And welcome back. I'm here today with the NDP candidate for the upcoming provincial election on October 14th, Jim Dinn. Jim, welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So, Jim, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, my gosh. One of my favorite topics, right. So, I grew up in the district of St. John's Centre. My father was a railwayman. 6 siblings, 3 sisters, 3 brothers. My mother worked at home by looking after us. And I was a teacher for 32 years, president of the Newfoundland and Labrador Teachers Association, one of the vice presidents of the Canadian Teachers Federation. Then Jerry Rogers recruited me for the 2019 election, and in that role I was served as the MHA for St. John's Centre, and then became the leader, and here we are in 2025 seeking re-election. Who knew?
Who knew? Well, that's great. And so we're just going to get right into some of the questions and the issues that we have today. So the first being the Churchill Falls and Hydro Development Project.
Yeah.
So in this election comes a pivotal moment for the future of Churchill Falls and the hydro development in Labrador. The MOU currently is on the table as being described as a $225 billion agreement. But opinions are divided on whether it should be finalized as it stands, renegotiated, or put to a referendum. Where do you stand, and how will you ensure the benefits are shared fairly within the province?
We've been very clear from the get-go that this has to make good economic sense. This overall will Newfoundland and Labrador benefit from this? Will the people who are in the communities, will the people who work on it, will they be the beneficiaries? Early on, I think we realized that this has the potential to become mired down in politics, whether it's the partisan politics that we're seeing already, or in the anti-Quebec politics and so on and so forth. So when we came back to debate this in January, Jordan and I had more or less, we had to come up with a plan that would make sense. I knew from Jordan that he really had to vote for it, because for Quebec, for Labrador West, it was a matter of life or death, as a matter of whether that area would shut down or would prosper. They needed the block of power. So we looked at we took the approach of, you know what, let's let negotiations proceed, see where they go, rather than undermining the negotiating team by voting against it, and at the same time have some oversight. That's the only question that has to be answered into this. So that's been our approach. As a referendum, this is not the time. It should not be an election on this. This should not be an election issue, because it's a business deal. It's an economic deal. It's something that's going to benefit the people of the province. Politics has no place into it. I sat in the House of Assembly along with Jordan and Alice, and we listened for the last 6 years to the banter, the childish insults back and forth over Muskrat Falls. So from our point of view, it's got to come down, does it make sense? Now, there's some question about whether the Oversight Committee has been compromised. One of the things we'll want the Premier to do is to release the resignation letter of Michael Wilson, make sure that there's been no political interference. But going forward, this is going to be a deal that makes sense for everyone.
Thank you. So the next question is around healthcare. So healthcare is one of the most pressing concerns in our province. Families are coping with a shortage of doctors, long wait times, and rural areas are without reliable access to basic services. Seniors are asking for dignity and proper support, and there's an increasing demand for stronger mental health care. So what specific actions will you and your party take to improve access to healthcare in Newfoundland and Labrador?
Wow, that's a big question, but a good one. And I will tell you one that's on the minds of a lot of people as a person who's, had family members in the healthcare system. So from our point of view, it's about if we want to look at part of our plan is to remove the agency, nursing agencies from the system, repurpose that money into addressing the issues in the healthcare system, from healthcare professionals to frontline staff who've talked about issues that are basically negatively impacting retention. About expanding the locum nurse travel approach for areas that are that may not have the medical care they need. Mental health availability. We've looked at having under MCP access to three psychologist visits throughout the year. We're looking at also making sure that nursing students have, along with education and social work students, have paid work terms, that we're going to engage with them from the get-go. But the big thing for us, I guess, is making sure that we engage with the people on the front line, the nurses, healthcare professionals, doctors, you name it, whoever they are, because often they're the ones that have the answers and the solutions when it comes to flexibility of shifts and so on and so forth. But they're often the ones who are ignored when we see decisions being made.
That's right, and this kind of goes into that as well. So Newfoundland and Labrador has the highest rate of poor mental health in our country, the highest rate of self-harm, and it is experiencing rising deaths linked to drug toxicity. Experts say our mental health strategy is outdated. What would you do to modernize services, expand access, and ensure that people in crisis receive timely and effective help?
Well, that goes back to some of the initiatives that we've talked about in terms of access to that health care, mental health care. I know in a number of people who've called in to our office, they're at that stage where they're seeking help, wanting to be told, well, you've got to wait a week. We had schools in central Newfoundland who were being told a little over a year ago that, look, not to send any more students for assessment because the backlog there was too much of a backlog. But if I may, I'm going to take a different step, because it's interesting what you've said here with regards to the increase in mental health, because I would say they're hand in hand with housing as well. So in the time that we've seen this increase in of mental health issues and so on and so forth, I would say since 2019, we've seen an increase in the use of emergency housing shelters. Housing has become a major issue. Homelessness, people who are basically facing being put on the street. We've seen the rise of encampments, which we didn't have before. So to me, mental health, housing, addictions, even crime or safety, concerns are all interconnected. So from our point of view, part of our plan is about addressing the housing crisis and making sure people have that stable environment in which to live. Then we address, and at the same time, then we address the mental health concerns. But it's kind of hard to help you with a person with the mental health issues if they're on the street or they don't know where they're going to sleep each night.
Exactly. And this kind of goes into that with the affordability and cost of living. So affordability has become a daily struggle for many, from housing, food, fuel, and rising tuitions. So according to 2024 data, about 50,000 Newfoundlanders and Labradorians live below the poverty line. What steps will you and your party take to bring down everyday costs while tackling poverty and to ensure that workers can earn a living wage in this province?
I think ultimately we've got to start by addressing the whole issue around climate change as well, because you can just take a look what happened here in Newfoundland and Labrador. Certainly the impact of climate change on food prices, insurance, building supplies, you name it, and the stress, like the people who are displaced. That's the first thing. Secondly, I would have to look at some of the measures we put forward for students, removing the, bringing back, rolling back tuition freeze to 2022 levels and freezing them. The other aspect of paid work terms, so that students are not only, like they're paying tuition, but they're also basically paying tuition to work for nothing. So about recognizing the value of their work. Secondly, another initiative we were putting in place is to increase the minimum wage from $22 up to $22. And at the same time, we're reducing the corporate income tax on small businesses so that they can invest in their workers. Apart from that, we're also looking at increasing the seniors benefit by 25% and also indexing it to the cost of living. Okay, so those are just some of those issues. The other part, some of the answers, I should say. The other part that we're looking at is also bringing in, exploring the whole notion of guaranteed basic income, something that's been proven to actually help people, lift people out of poverty, and it's something that there's a committee that has final report in place. And I would argue it's time to start really get on side with the National Pharmacare program, which I do not understand why the Liberal government did not sign on to this. This is an easy win that would reduce healthcare costs for people all across the province.
So I know you kind of touched on this one as well with the housing crisis. So in 2024, more than 20% of households in the province were facing housing insecurity due to affordability, adequacy, and suitability. Rents are climbing. Affordable housing is especially difficult for students and young families. So what concrete measures will you take to expand affordable housing and long-term solutions to help with homelessness?
Perfect. Good question, and one we're prepared to address. And I should point out, prepared to address within a costed platform that we put out there, one that's been vetted by economists, that we're clear to show how we're going to pay for this. So if we want to look at this, we've seen over the last few years, to your point, the number of emergency shelters double. From 2019 to 2024, double, and we've seen the amount of money triple from 4 million to 14 million on emergency shelters. Not an answer. So we're proposing, again, to bring in vacancy and rent controls, which would stabilize the increases in rent, because, again, I can give you stories of a couple, senior couple who are moving down to Placentia from downtown St. John's, not because they want to, but because their rent's going up from $1,200 to $1,800, $2,000, and Placentia is the only place they can find a cheap place in which to live. So rent and vacancy control won't solve the issue by itself, but the next phase of our plan about building 1,000 affordable housing units a year through NL Homes, standalone, self-sustaining Crown Corporation, is about making sure we have the affordable homes, not-for-profit, community-based housing, so that for the deeply affordable houses and people who need that, we have that there. Very clear, if you look at some of the reports that have come out recently, 0.3% of the housing stock in Newfoundland and Labrador is affordable, is not community-based, compared to 4% nationally and 7% according to the OECD. So we've got a long ways to go. Our current government seems to be focused on the private market, which is about profit, and there's a place for that. But for deeply affordable, it's going to have to take some drastic action and other measures that go along with it, which I can get into it as well.
Perfect. So next we're going to move on to the economy and job sector. So beyond hydro and oil, people are asking what the future of Newfoundland and Labrador's economy will look like. So what is your vision for building long-term prosperity, diversifying our industries, and ensuring good jobs are not just available for St. John's, but the rest of our province?
A good question as well. And you know what? I'm a townie.
Yeah.
Grew up in town, and I make no apologies for that. But it is pointless to have a province where the city of St. John's thrives and no other place is thriving. So to me, a part of it being a strong economy and a strong province is making sure that all aspects of the province, all communities in the province have that chance to prosper. So our own approach to the MOU reflects that. We've also looked at setting up a future economy, future industry secretariat, which will be looking at that, capitalizing on green jobs and making sure that that we are able to benefit from that, that we have good union jobs to go with that. We also are looking at, we've spoken to Trades NL, but we've talked about a local procurement policy, and that basically prioritizes hiring local tradespeople and people to do the work. And Trades NL pointed out to us that that like they've got 70% unemployment in their members that could be working here in the province. So if we're going to have companies come in who are going to, whether mining, building, ships, you name it, they're going to be exploiting our resources, should they not be building them here and get the maximum benefit? We have a critical mineral strategy, which is all, again, about developing that a way forward, not just for St. John's, and but also for the rest of the province. Interestingly, my first teaching job was down in St. Lawrence, and at that time, the mine had been, the fluorspar mine that had closed, and one of the first things they'd asked about in my one of my home economic or my economics class was, what are some possible jobs that industries that could revitalize the area, and what do we have down there now? But the possibility of a rocket, you know, and satellite. So you think about it. I wouldn't have imagined that that 35 or well, almost 40 years ago now, but those are the things we should be capitalizing on, because we've got the human resources here to do it.
Excellent. So I know we kind of touched on the education and youth sector.
Yep.
So you know, what would your plan to do to make post-secondary education more affordable, and how can you ensure that young people see a future for themselves here?
You talk to universities, you can see the enrollment is dropping, especially with international students and so on and so forth. And a key part of that, when you look at it, that has a negative impact on the future. That is the brain trust of the province. And if tuition is not affordable, people are going to go elsewhere where it may be, okay, we have a better opportunity of finding a job later on. And we should be selling, that should be one of the advantages of coming to Newfoundland and Labrador, affordable tuition. And I look at education as not a commodity, it is an investment. So we've been very clear in this about, through a number of our strategies, about hiring, making sure we hire healthcare professionals, about paid work terms, about reducing tuition as a way to attract this. Housing, affordable housing is another aspect. We're also looking at part of our platform to hire 3 recruiters, reinstate the one medical recruiter, combine them with a nursing recruiter and other healthcare a recruiter for other healthcare professionals, combine them into one office so that we can maximize the benefit and bring more people into the province as well, and keep them here more than anything else.
Yeah, perfect. So next is community safety is becoming a growing concern. Urban areas are facing increases in crime, drug-related activity, and violence, while rural areas often lacked adequate policing and emergency response. What is your plan to strengthen the public safety, improve policing, and crime prevention across our province? Well,
one of the things we know, we have no issue with certainly negotiating with the federal government when it comes to strengthening our CMP resources. But I will tell you this: we are also going to be tough on the causes of crime. Okay.
Yes.
And I will tell you, and I speak from what I've seen in my district in the 6 years I've been there, from when I could, I could had a chance of finding a place for people in which to live, that the housing precarity, the lack of housing, the homelessness are going hand in hand in the same time with the increase in mental health issues and the related drug addiction, because underlying any addiction just about is a mental health issue that's not being addressed. And goes with the safety, because the other part we hear is about the panhandlers and so on and so forth. So To me, yes. We can look at things like community policing, which is about being proactive, but we've still got to get to what has caused this in the last 6 years. Why are we noticing it? And I've asked people this. We're seeing this increase, and a lot of it has to come down with the fact that that people have been thrown out. They've been destabilized. Their mental health is destabilized. We've come out of a pandemic, which has made matters worse. So while we're dealing with the symptoms, and let's deal with the causes, because we can certainly hire more police as well, more judges, more lawyers, build bigger prisons, but we haven't addressed the problem.
That's right, yes. So at the same time, many residents do feel left behind, particularly seniors and people with living disabilities, and those are vulnerable to poverty, of course. So how are you planning to help people with disabilities who continue to face barriers with housing, employment, and health services?
Wow. I come from, I think of the school system and the inclusivity and the supports that are needed there. So you look at the number of organizations that are certainly helping people with disabilities, about making sure they have access to work and so on and so forth. And I'm going to use disabilities broadly. But again, I go back to, in our discussion on basic income, it also comes down to the income that's needed for someone who has disabilities, because their costs, affordability is going to be much higher. So that's one of the things we're trying to address with that. It's also about making sure that that there are homes and that there are supports for independent living as well. And for that means, like, even in the workplace, of having a coach, job coach, or supporting organizations such as, I think, like Avalon Employment and others there, that actually help people become productive members, or to not even productive members, but just to get personal fulfillment. I think of the Vera Pelin Society, and in my district, and the other organizations that help people, and making sure that they have the funding too that they need to help the people who come to them.
So this past summer, Newfoundland Labrador faced devastating wildfires, and we had one of the most mildest winters on record. Yeah. Climate change is already reshaping our province. So what steps will you take to address the impacts of climate change and protect our communities to ensure that the resource development is balanced with environmental sustainability?
Yep, and you know something? I was looking at this, I listened to a few meteorologists who were saying that what we're seeing this summer is a foretaste of what's to come. So the fires, like people say that the fires were started by, deliberately started, maybe there's some arson and so on and so forth, but the fact is they start more readily, they burn longer, burn hotter. We also noticed that at the same time that rivers and bodies dried up, ones that I cannot remember ever seeing in my lifetime. We've had also incidents with aquaculture where we see mass die-offs. Again, they would say because of the warming oceans. We've had farmers who here in the province talk about this has been the worst year they ever had. We've got people saying, could you please not, farmers, please do not buy bales of hay for ornament, for decoration, because we don't have enough. We're trying to feed our livestock. So we've got a serious problem. And I think part of our critical mineral strategy is about preparing for the future, about transitioning. The other aspect is about having a funding to go forward to deal with this resiliency, because it's going to cost a lot. Big question for us is not do you believe in climate change, but do you know what it means?
Exactly. That's an excellent answer. And so we've got a few minutes left, so I'm going to ask you about provincial debt. Newfoundland Labrador's net debt is projected at $19 billion for the 2025-2026 fiscal, nearly 45% of our GDP. What is your plan to reduce the party's debt load while trying to make investments needed in services and economic growth?
I'm glad you asked that, because that's why we put forward a costed budget, and one that does not add to to the provincial debt, and actually by the end of 4 years we're showing a surplus. So we've been very conscious of that, but what we've always been saying, it's not about the spending of money, but where the priorities and where we spend that money to get to help people the most. So that's been our very clear focus in putting forward this budget, to not to add the debt, but we wanted to cost it so people knew what we were spending on and where we were getting the money without increasing taxes as well.
Excellent. So thank you. And finally, we're going to give you the chance to speak directly to the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. So in about a minute or so, you can tell voters why you would be the best choice to lead this province.
Well, first of all, I would say it's not so much me, it's the team we have around us, the NDP, and what we stand for. I'm fortunate to I grew up here. My wife and I raised our children in the district. My children live in the province. My grandchildren are living in the province, and they're my source of strength. But from our point of view, I guess, you've got a choice. People of the province, you have a choice right now between choosing parties which have basically taken the same wash, rinse, repeat cycle that we've seen, who I would say have not had the respect to put forward a costed platform as we have done, because I'm assuming they take the attitude that, well, it's going to be one of them that's going to form power. But we have delivered a costed platform which addresses issues like housing, safety, the future of the province, and our healthcare. And we are committed to following through on it. And like we know, you should know that, because it's been a costed, balanced, reasonable, and thoughtful platform.
Excellent. And we wish you all the success. And thank you so much for being here with us tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we'll be right back after this short break.
This is Rogers TV. You're watching Rogers TV St. John's.
Thanks for tuning in to tonight's episode. We want to thank our guest, the Honourable Jim Dinn of the NDP party, for the upcoming provincial election on October 14th. Don't forget to vote. Until next time, much love.
My dad was a railway porter. It was just about the only job a black man could get. But he had big plans for us. Music would be our ticket out of poverty. I knew we couldn't afford that piano, so I practiced twice as hard.
Nice, Daisy. Okay, Oscar, let's hear it.
Turns out, I wasn't half bad. Then I found jazz, or it found me. It wasn't all easy, though. I faced a lot of hate, but I found my stage. They call me the man with 4 hands. Well, I don't know about that, but let's see how far this ticket takes me.
From Montreal to Carnegie Hall and far beyond, Oscar Peterson became one of the most recorded and celebrated jazz musicians of all time.
After a night out with your friends, there's always options for getting home safely. You could call your BFF, your mom or dad, whoever you can count on for a safe ride home. You could call your favorite cab company or 1-888 taxi guy. Or you could use the Arrive Alive smartphone app to help you choose your ride. Be it a friend, transit, or taxi, getting home safely is app easy. Now available for iOS and Android devices. Visit arrivealive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive. Drive sober.